Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Raw podcast. My name's James Copley, and I'm your host today. I am joined by James Jones. Welcome to the podcast. Please, James, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, James. I'm James Jones. I'm the co-host of the We Are West Ham podcast. It was originally a radio show, now just a fully fledged podcast and YouTube channel. Been consistently moaning about West Ham for the best part of about 6 years now. But it's all good. It's all good.
And as well as that, you are technically one of my bosses because we work for the same company and in the same industry as well. So there is that.
Technically, yeah, there is that as well. Yeah.
Well, let's get straight into it. I mean, it's been a long, long time since Sunderland have played West Ham, sort of 7, 8 seasons. I think it will be 3,009 days come Saturday since Sunderland have played in the top flight, which is the longest period of time in the club's entire history. What's sort of your perception of Sunderland at the moment and the transfer window they've had? They've spent £150 million. Has that sort of filtered down to London? Has it sort of formed part of your consciousness ahead of this game?
Yes, definitely. I think when the fixtures came out and I saw Sunderland away first game, I thought, it's never going to be easy. But most teams in the Premier League would have been looking at a newly promoted team to trying to kick the season off. But as since then, and the business that Sunderland have done, I'm a little bit more concerned than I was when the fixtures came out, because I think Sunderland's done some fantastic business, a nice mix of experience and youth and young talent coming through and coming into the club. I think I was talking to a Sunderland fan yesterday, and they were saying that the spend makes Sunderland the second highest spending newly promoted team in history, maybe even the first. So sometimes you look at that and go, if they bought too much too quickly, is it going to be too much to gel at one time? But I think given the mixture of youth and experience, that the likes of Granit Xhaka coming in, and the likes of Arthur Masuaku, who I love, but then coupled with some of the youth players that have come in, the youngsters and players sort of at the early stages of their career, I think it's a good balance. And I think it's been very clear looking from the outside in that it's a well thought out transfer window from Sunderland. But that could all change after the first 2 or 3 games of the season. You might be going, "Oh no, what have we done?" But I think just looking at it on paper, I think it's seen sort of from the outside looking in as quite a positive summer for Sunderland.
And how do you view the game itself? Because the reason I asked that question is that if I was a West Ham fan, I'd be looking at that thinking, West Ham have got the squad, the Premier League experience to beat Sunderland, but there has been, a few little murmurings around Potter and just the general state of the club. If West Ham were to go to the Stadium of Light and lose that game, it might set you up for a tough season. Is that fair?
I think there is an element of truth in that. I think a lot of the criticism and the pressure aimed towards Graham Potter, particularly towards the end of last season and at the early stage of this summer, were a little bit unfair. I think when he joined the club, when he arrived at the club last January, he was inheriting, half the squad was a David Moyes squad in decline, and the other half was a Julian Lopetegui's squad that was bang out of form, and he had to come in very, very quickly and steady the ship. He did do that. He steered us away from what would have been a relegation battle. Picked up some big wins at Arsenal and at Man United along the way. And this summer, he's clearly instilled, from what we've seen from the social media and from the games itself, the pre-season games, a real team ethic. There's the squad, there's a good squad harmony going on there. They all get on really, really well. They all look very, very happy to be there. And the performances in pre-season have been, quite encouraging as well. There's still a lot more work to do. There's still a few more gaps in the squad we need to fill. But I think, to your point about, is there going to be pressure if we lose this game? I think, the first game of the season does tend to set the tone for the rest of the season. And losing to Sunderland away could just bring on some additional unnecessary pressure that I don't think he needs. I think he does need to hit the ground running just to avoid that, the ship being rocked a little bit. We need a little bit of consistency. He does need time. He probably needs a couple more transfer windows to really get the squad looking the way he wants it. But he ideally needs to get off to a positive start, whether that's a win or a draw. I mean, at the moment, I'll take a point, respect the away point. But yeah, he ideally needs to get 3 points this weekend.
What do you think constitutes success for West Ham this season? Because obviously maybe it was a little bit of a disappointing season in terms of the league position, finishing 14th. Haven't really built off that European success under David Moyes. West Ham's a club I really like. I've got a cousin who's a West Ham fan. I find the fan base extremely passionate, but a bit like Sunderland over the years, they seem to lurch from one extreme to the other. And there's the West Ham way and the identity in it. It just feels like it doesn't tend to stick. And even under the likes of Sam Allardyce and David Moyes, where there's been success, there's still been grumblings alongside that. And there's the stadium element to consider as well, which I see a lot of discourse about online. So where is West Ham like as a club at the moment?
It's a good question because, you mentioned the European success there. We really thought, after 3 consecutive seasons in Europe, winning a European trophy, that was the first time in the club's history we'd been in Europe for three years in a row. And we really felt finally we're getting what was promised when we moved into that to London Stadium almost 10 years ago. We were promised European football consistently. We were promised success. We were promised trophies. It took a long time to get there, but then finally we thought we got it. We cracked it. Finally, we're there. And I think, we're a big enough club to feel like we should be in the conversation for European qualification in the Premier League every single season. Not saying that we deserve to qualify for it every year. I'm not saying that we deserve to be a top 6 club every single season. But I feel like we're a big enough club to be in the conversation every year. And we should be, really, given the resources that we've got. But this season, I think we have to look at it realistically and go, look, after David Moyes left, it's the Lopetegui appointment was the wrong appointment. And we're now kind of almost trying to lay those foundations again and kind of just have a steady season. I'm under no illusions that it's going to be probably another season where we're going to finish probably in the bottom half. But, if we can look at it 11th, 12th, improve slightly on last year's 14th position and kind of just have a season where we're not looking over our shoulder. I think that's really important for the football club and for Graham Potter as well, that we're not spending parts of the season going, if we lose this, we're in trouble. Put a run of results together. Expect that, some weeks you are going to lose games that perhaps you should have won, but then maybe win some that you thought you might lose, and just remain relatively consistent to a point where we can go into next summer with a solid foundation. Go, okay, well, this season we finished 11th or 12th. We had a little bit of a cut run maybe, and Graham Potter's got some more money to throw at it, because if we don't do that and we have a season where we are looking over our shoulder, then the likelihood is that Graham Potter is sacked at some point in the season. And if that's the case, then we're just starting again. Because the new manager is going to come in. He's going to need time. He's going to probably finish 14th, 15th by the end of the season. And then we're going to be saying the same. We're going to have the same conversation this time next year, going, he just needs to finish 11th or 12th to then go again. So we need that consistency. We need to be in a position where he's afforded the time to improve and get us back to where we feel we should be. So, yeah, that's probably why there's a great deal of pressure on his shoulders, because if he starts badly and by October, November, we're sitting in the bottom 5, then it could be a little bit of a disaster for us, I think.
It's very hard, that scenario, isn't it, James, when you talk about managers and having different squads. Just thinking back to Sunderland's last stint in the Premier League, which was 10 years. We came up under Roy Keane, so there was a degree of stability. We had, I think, Steve Bruce for 2.5 seasons, and then after that, really all hell broke loose. I don't think anybody completed a full season at Sunderland until David Moyes, which was the relegation season. We lurched from Gus Poyet, there was Paulo Di Canio, Martin O'Neill, all of these names, and by the end of it, you ended up with a squad with players from 6 or 7 managers. It's crazy. And, there's so many buzzwords about football these days, but continuity and squad planning are high up there. And it is hard for managers when they're coming in to sort of to get hold of that and to get their own players in as well. On that note, what have West Ham done in the transfer market so far, and what are they planning to do? Because I'm seeing sort of 50 million links to Southampton midfielders and links to Harvey Elliott as well, which seems quite exciting.
Yeah, I think, at the beginning of the summer, there were concerns because we were hearing that the club needed to sell before they could buy, and that was really concerning at the time, and that has been the case to an extent. But we offloaded Mohamed Kudus to Tottenham, and that's allowed us to go out into the market and spend a bit of money on. We brought in Malik Diouf, the left wing back from Slavia Prague, who looks fantastic, by the way. Only 20 years old, got a lot of promise about him. But then the rest of the signings have been pretty underwhelming, is probably the right way to describe it. Kyle Walker-Peters is, went down with Southampton last year, but it is a relatively solid utility fullback, can play the side of defence. His Premier League experience, so you'd take it as a freebie. Callum Wilson, I'm still scratching my head over the decision to bring him in on a performance-based contract. But I'd rather he's going to spend most of the season injured. We know that. So that's been a little bit concerning. And then Mads Hermansen in goal from Leicester. So we've signed an injury-prone 32-year-old striker, and then we've signed 2 players from relegated clubs. So that's why it's a little bit underwhelming. It could be 3 if we get the £50 million Southampton midfielder in Fernandes, but he is a good player. I think a lot of people look at relegated players and go, well, he's got relegated, so he must be rubbish. That's just not always the case. So a lot of fans want us to go out there and spend big money on players playing in the Champions League, but realistically, we're not in the position to do that at the moment. We need another midfielder. It looks like either Harvey Elliott or Matheus Fernandes could be the guy. We probably needed another striker because we can't rely on Fulkrug and Callum Wilson to remain fit all season, although Fulkrug's been in really good form in pre-season. And probably another centre-back. He's going to be playing 3 central defenders all season. We've only got 4 on the books, so we probably need another one. So far, it's been an okay summer for us. It's been better than I was expecting, given that we've got a sell to buy and all of that happened earlier on in the summer. And there's probably going to be 1 or 2 more exits, but the squad's looking okay. I'm a little bit more confident than I was 2 months ago, let's put it that way, because the performances in pre-season have been quite encouraging. It looks like they've taken to Graham Potter's style and his philosophy relatively quickly. But there's still a lot more work to do before we can be absolutely ready for the season, I think.
The Callum Wilson's a really interesting one. Am I right in thinking, James, that there's some sort of historic needle between Wilson and West Ham fans? What was that all about? Please explain.
Well, it's a strange one, and a lot of fans. He had to come out and apologise for everything he's done to the club after he signed, because it's a good
start, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. It started when he was playing when he was at Bournemouth, and he scored. I think it was at Bournemouth's ground. I can't remember whether they won 3-2 or it was a 3-3 draw. I think it was a 3-3 draw, and he scored a last-minute goal to make it 3-3, and he handballed it in from about 3 yards out, and obviously before the days of VAR. And so the goal stood. Fans are upset about it, and he came out in his post-match press conference and was laughing about the fact. And he basically didn't say it in so many words, but he was admitting that he deliberately handballed it, and kind of made a joke that is what it is. Sorry, I've done that. So immediately, he's public enemy number 1 in East London.
Yeah.
And then he's, made a career out of scoring against us. I think he scored more goals against us than in any other club in his career. His first Premier League goals for Bournemouth were a hat-trick on the opening day of the season, on Bournemouth's first game in Premier League at Upton Park. So he's been a thorn in our side for so long. And then he had that podcast with Mikel Antonio where he spent almost every episode just criticising and taking the mick out of West Ham. And because at that time he's at Newcastle playing in the Champions League, and we were playing in the Conference League at the time, and he's saying, Antonio's only scoring European goals against farmers and stuff like that. And it was like, he's got no respect. But now he's a West Ham player, and I tweeted the other day that it's sport. He's happy to have a bit of banter. He's well within his rights to have a bit of banter. And barring the handball and the joke and the cheating, it's sport. It's banter. A lot of my mates take the mick out of West. I've got a lot of mates of Tottenham fans who've obviously just won the Europa League, and they're going, well, you won the Farmers Trophy, we won the actual trophy. And, I don't dislike my mates for saying that sort of stuff. So disliking Callum Wilson seems a little bit, contradictory in a way. So, he seems like a nice bloke. Looks like he'd be a good character in the dressing room. So I haven't really got a problem with it like that. My issue is that he's going to spend a lot of time on the sidelines injured. But yeah, a lot of fans are not happy. I've seen rumours of fans preparing to boo him on his first appearance and stuff like that because they're just unwilling to forgive, which I think is a little bit extreme, a little bit much. But some fans aren't willing to forget those sort of things, unfortunately.
Well, we'll move on to injuries then, since we're talking about Callum Wilson and you've mentioned it there. Will he be fit to play on Saturday? And I understand Somerville currently out as well. What's the latest on injuries with Graham Potter's squad?
Well, it's only Somerville that seems to be the one sidelined. Still, he picked up a hamstring injury back. I think it was on Graham Potter's first game
Mm.
back in January, and he had
He's a
surgery.
good little player as well. He's
Really good
very
little
handy.
player. Yeah, he was one of our best players under Lopetegui. And before his injury in that first game for Graham Potter, he was looking really sharp. And he just didn't come back from that hamstring injury. He had surgery at the beginning of the summer, so he's likely to miss the first month or so of the season until he gets back fit. But other than that, I'm under the impression that Callum Wilson is fit. He didn't feature in our last pre-season game on Saturday at home against Lille, which surprised me. He wasn't even on the bench. But as far as I'm aware, he is fit, and he will probably be on the bench on Saturday.
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier in terms of Graham Potter deploying a three at the back, but how are you expecting West Ham to play against Sunderland and generally stylistic? Because he's got his feet under the table a little bit, hasn't he? He's got a few of his own signs. He's had time on the training ground now. It's always hard when you're parachuting in mid-season and you're putting fires out left, right, and centre, and you have to become a bit of a pragmatist, don't you? But Potter strikes me as very much as an idealist.
Yeah, it's he's well known for changing tactics mid-game several times. So he every game this summer he started with 5 at the back or 3 at the back depending on the shape. And his wing backs, which will be Malik Diouf and Wan-Bissaka, their remit is to essentially be wingers and be as high up the pitch as possible. Midfield wise, before making a signing, it is very slow still. It'll be probably Edson Alvarez, Thomas Souček, and Lucas Paqueta in midfield. Paqueta aside, there's not a great deal of creativity there, not a great deal of pace, so it will be down to the likes of Diouf and Wan-Bissaka to almost act as inverted wing backs as well. So that's kind of what we're expecting in the early stages of the season before we can bring in a midfielder who's a little bit more dynamic and a little bit more pacey, a little bit more creative. But one thing we have noticed is that there's a lot of intensity in our when we're out of possession. There's a lot of pressing, which we didn't really see last year. We saw it in stages, but I've noticed we were 2-0 up against Bournemouth in the Premier League Summer Series in America, 2-0 up, and in the final minute, our forwards are still pressing their centre backs like intensely. With a couple of minutes to go in the game, and that kind of just shows the mentality that he's tried to instill in the players. That yes, we might be 2-0 up, but we've still got to press, we've still got to fight. So beyond that, it's still a little bit up in the air in terms of what he's going to do, because as I said, he changes his formation so many times, changes his tactics and his philosophy so many times in a game that we might set up one way, and within 5 minutes of the first whistle, we might move around and we might change. So. But I think what we can expect is just a lot of intense pressing, and on the ball, it will be, the wing backs are going to take. It could be 5 up front at times. It's just the transitional periods that I'm a little bit concerned about, because there's not a great deal of pace in midfield. So if we lose possession high up the field, it could be, it could be quite concerning, quite dangerous. But we've got enough attacking options there to hopefully, when we do get in the final third, try and make it count more often than not.
It's interesting you mention the press and West Ham pressing, because having watched the Championship and the Premier League, I think that's one of the key points of difference is just general time on the ball. I think a couple of the top sides in the Championship did it quite well at times last season. Leeds did it well, but Premier League teams tend to do it for 90 minutes. And that is a little bit of a worry for me coming into the game, James, that, West Ham press high in the first 10 minutes, Sunderland are nervy. There's going to be an inexperienced defence in terms of Premier League minutes. It's an inexperienced team in terms of being Premier League ready. There's a lot of unknowns in there. And my big concern is that the game could get away from Sunderland fairly quickly within sort of the first 10, 20 minutes if West Ham come out and blitz them. But if they did manage to weather that storm, hopefully Sunderland would be able to grow into it, and then the nerves sort of shift. It's going to be a big sellout crowd as well, so hopefully that'll be a factor. But yeah, I think with West Ham playing a 5 at the back with wing backs as well, that's not something Sunderland came up against too much last season. We tend to play a 4-3-3, so I think that tactical battle is going to be very, very interesting, and I think the opening sort of quarter of the game could prove to be sort of really crucial.
Yeah, I think we saw in our friendly against Lille, 1-0 down with a couple of minutes to go, and obviously we needed a goal. It's only a friendly, but even in the friendly, you've got 3 players surrounding their centre backs, forcing them into an error which led to a goal in their own box. And if we do that from the very off, and I'm sure Graham Potter will be saying, this is an inexperienced defence. They've just come up. Get on them first minute. Really hassle them. Fulkrug will do that. The only problem with Fulkrug pressing is he doesn't have a great deal of pace. So if you've got centre backs with a little bit of confidence, a little bit of pace, they should get away from him. Jared Bowen's the one that just won't give up, and he'd be the one causing most of the problems in that press. But yeah, if I'm Graham Potter, I'd be exactly what you just said. I'd be like, right, from the first minute, get on them. Let's test this team, because there's a lot of new signings in there, a lot of inexperience. They wouldn't have gelled properly yet either, because there's a lot of new players. Let's really give them something to think about and try and put them on the back foot early doors. Whether that happens or not, it's a completely different story. But that's what I'd like to think will happen. And if it does happen, we've got enough quality in there to hurt most teams in the Premier League, I think, from an attacking point of view. But like I said, if it doesn't go right, then I think there's enough quality at Sunderland to be able to on the transition really hurt us as well. So it's going to be very, very interesting, as you say, to if we don't score early, or if we don't get you on the back foot early enough, then and you grow into the game, then it could make for an interesting 90 minutes.
Well, I don't think we've won a top flight game on the opening day since 2009. So
we've got a similar run. Like we never start the season well, ever. So
yeah, I mean, we used to. I mean, during the back end to that 10 years in the Premier League, we used to start horrendously, beat Newcastle a couple of times, pick up and miraculously recover. But obviously our luck ran out in the end, and we spent 8 seasons away. Talk to us about Arthur Masuaku. I don't think he'll play against West Ham, but obviously Sunderland have signed him. I think he spent 5.5 seasons in London with you guys. What type of player is Sunderland getting?
You're getting a bit of a showman. Well, that's what he was when he left. I don't know. He's a little bit older now, a little bit more experienced. But West Ham fans loved him. He's a cult hero at the club. We called him King Arthur. And I think actually I was reading the on the Sunderland's official website of the announcement of the signing, and they even made reference to the fact he was called King Arthur.
Yeah.
So the fans love him. He's got tricks up his sleeve. There's a couple of tricks that he pulled off, some that he didn't. He's not the greatest left back in the world. He's not going to pull up any trees, but he's solid. He's decent. He's got pace. He can put a cross in. He'd give everything, but he does tend to try things in places that he shouldn't try them. He loves a step over and things like that. He's got quick feet. But yeah, he probably, I think for Sunderland, I think he'd do a decent job. But when he left West Ham, it was at a time when we kind of felt like we needed to upgrade a little bit. But yeah, I absolutely love the man. I'm so happy that he's back in the Premier League. And if he doesn't play, I'll be gutted, because I'm looking forward to seeing him.
It's always a little bit concerning when a fullback likes a step over, isn't it? That's not really what you want to hear.
Yes, like I don't know whether you've seen it, but there's a clip of him doing some outrageous skill playing against Tottenham at Wembley when they had Wembley as the home ground.
Yeah, I've seen it.
And he pulls it off, but it's like, what are you doing? Like, I don't need to do that. There's just no need for you to be doing that. Luckily, he was in an attacking position, but it's like, but that's the sort of player he is. He's not scared to try things like that. And sometimes he pulls it off, sometimes he doesn't. But he tends to, be a 6.5, 7 out of 10 most weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're coming to an end, so I'm going to ask you for your predictions for the weekend, James. You don't have to put your neck on the line and go for a particular score if you don't want to, but how do you think you'll feel generally come Saturday night?
Well, in my head, I think I said it earlier, if we can avoid defeat, I'll be happy. I'll take a point. I'm always of the view that you respect the away point. Doesn't matter who you're playing. You win your home games and pick up as many points away from home as you can. If you do that, then you're in for a good season. So I'll take a point, but I feel like I'm taking into account everything we've discussed about, getting on you guys early doors, and I feel like we can come away with 3 points. It's going to be a tough game. It's going to be tight. But I've said it on another podcast and my own as well that I think we're going to win 2-1. But if we don't and it ends up 1-1 or even ball draw 0-0, then I'd be pretty happy with that as a decent start. But for me, it's just about not losing on the first game of the season, because we're too used to that, and it just sets the tone. It's just not a nice feeling starting the season with a defeat. And I have said, and I'm sorry to everyone that's watching, but I have said that it's almost written in the stars that Callum Wilson comes off the bench and gets the winner, because
absolutely, it will be hell on if that happens.
I think he's scored on his debut at every club he's played at.
Has he really? Yeah.
So if he is on the bench, he will come off the bench, and if it's 1-1 with a couple of minutes to go, it feels like it's written in the stars that he will score.
I mean, these types of things do happen to Sunderland quite regularly. I mean, in League One, there was always a journeyman striker who had some tenuous connection to Newcastle, who would score. His granddad worked down the pit or something in Newcastle, and he'd do the Alan Shearer, and it was just the most tin pot thing in the world. So this could be another level up from that. I mean, we've also got a great record for former players scoring against us, having done nothing since they left us. So if it can happen, it's like the Mick McCarthy thing. It can. If it can happen, if it can happen to Sunderland, it will. Where can people find you, James? Again, remind them if they want to hear about West Ham more in the build up to the Sunderland game.
Yeah, so we are the We Are West Ham podcast. We're on all the podcast platforms. We're on YouTube as well. You can get us on all the social media platforms as well. We've just released our episode building up to this weekend, our first one of the season, where we spend a lot of it trying not to be that negative, but try to be as positive as you possibly could. It was a difficult episode, to be fair, but yeah, if you just type in "We Are West Ham" into any platform, social media, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, you can find us.
Brilliant. Thanks for joining us, James. We'll certainly have you on later on in the season for the return leg at the London Stadium. Thank you to everybody for watching. You can head over to the Sunderland Echo website for all of the build-up ahead of the game on Saturday, including the press conference, which is Thursday. We're recording this on Wednesday. So keep a lookout on the website and our social media channels, and thanks for watching.